Well, I want to give a little more criticism of this complete fraud, Rick Scott and his company partner, Mitt Romney. Even though I'm a lifelong Republican and I have never voted Democrat in my entire life, and I've been voting for the last 40-something years, which I am going to stop doing because it's just a waste. Rick Scott, on this, I'm going to talk about a few things in Florida specifically, and some of the games they're playing to control people. And we're going to get into a little definitions about what government actually is, what the words are derived from the base language, Latin. Latin, pretty much everything that happened in Rome in ancient times, you can study it, and you'll find out what's going to happen today in the United States, because similar patterns have been repeating throughout history forever. Nothing's really changed that much. The technology changed, right? So Rick Scott ran a company that paid a record fine for committing Medicare fraud. I think it was Hospital Corporation of America, Columbine. He was the CEO of it. As a matter of fact, the board members even voted to get him out of there. The company got charged with 14 felony counts, the company. But him as CEO, he didn't get charged with nothing because he was just, the CEO. He should have got charged with felony counts, but he didn't. He walked off with over $200 million of stock options and over $20-something million in retirement. Then he came to Florida, spent $74 million of his own money so he can get into the medical racket over here. That's what went on with Rick Scott. Now, as far as him having a psychiatric condition, obviously, I think anybody that steals that much money is psychotic. They need, major treatment. I mean, really. Beyond what is normal, although I'm against a lot of that stuff. Because I could tell you that actually bipolar disorder and schizophrenia have been cured back in the 1940s by Dr. Abram Hoffer with high doses of nicotinic acid, vitamin B3, which cures an imbalance in the coenzyme NAD within 90 days on 90% of the patients. But they don't do that in the medical world because it's not profitable. Everything they do in the medical world is about pushing drugs and getting them addicted to drugs, which actually is very, 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 very dangerous when you combine that with guns. So, this is the other thing these gun control turds are not freaking even talking about. They're saying if somebody has a mental health issue, they should be seeking help and not be afraid to seek help. You know what? You should be afraid to seek help for this reason. It's like sticking your head in a lion's mouth. That's what it is going to a psychiatrist. Maybe not a psychologist, because a psychologist doesn't deal in these harmful meds. Mitt Romney, right in there with the Bush crew. He is evil as all hell. These people are all involved in the Iran-Contra. I know Bill Clinton was involved in it. Both parties are corrupt as all hell. Now, I'm telling you this from a lifelong Republican. You don't want to believe me? Look back on my other videos. I criticize Hillary Clinton left and right and Bill Clinton, okay? So, fine. Here we get into the definition of the word government itself. And this is where you are all slaves. The word government comes from the Latin verb gubernare, to control. We got to rule you, control you, make proclamations about, every time you walk into a court, you're subjecting yourself to the will of them, even though it's supposed to be fair and imbalanced, but you're not. You're actually putting yourself in danger. And the Latin noun means mens, which is government. So gubernare, mens, government. Mens means mind. So the word government is from Latin, to control the mind. And a lot of times mind is controlled just with symbology. Hey, that's what flags are for, right? Sometimes, even when they show the newscast from the Capitol, they show the Capitol building or whatever, If they're telling you about finance, they're showing you the silhouette of New York City or whatever. Or if they're talking about travel, they're showing you a beach. But it's always about the impression that you get in the mind. That's what it is. Everything is a mind game, and it's an illusion. But the game is basically to control the mind. So, therefore, mental health is all about controlling the mind with psychotropic drugs. Therefore, it is a method to enslave all. So when you seek help, you're seeking to be enslaved. As a matter of fact, any revolutionary in the past would have been drugged to the max if they were around today. George Washington would have been drugged. Abraham Lincoln would have been drugged. Well, I think Abraham Lincoln should have been drugged because he started a freaking war. But, all the good guys would have been drugged too, okay? So, that's the deal. Now, what happened in Florida? And now I'm going to tell you, this Maxine Baker, got mixed feelings about her. She's the one that started the Baker Act, quote unquote, the Florida's Mental Health Act, or whatever you want to call it. She's the one that actually, quote unquote, reformed it. But in reality, it made it worse. And before, they used to have it whereby some unscrupulous family members who wanted to take over, say, the family farm, and, the grandpa's, all his property and everything, they just get together with, a couple people and a judge, a corrupt judge that they might pay, and they'll have him committed forever, and they'll steal everything he's got. Well, they do that today anyway. They do the same thing, even despite this BS Baker Act. And the deal is, this is actually part of the gun control. This is also part of what Rick Scott's talking about. And you got to remember, Rick Scott is all connected with Medicare and Medicaid fraud. He made millions and millions, or millions, more like tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars off of Medicaid fraud. Those fines for Medicaid and Medicare fraud were over $1 billion. They're the largest fines ever levied in the United States. Ever. Rick Scott. I mean, how could this guy, this guy should have been in Alcatraz, not in the freaking office in Tallahassee as governor. And I'm telling you, as a Republican, not that I trust Democrats. I do not trust Democrats. I can't stand the Clintons. I can't stand Biden, Schumer, Feinstein, Pelosi, the whole 9 yards, all right? I don't like Democrats. Generally speaking, I really can't stand them more. But Rick Scott and people like Mitt Romney and Jeb Bush and George Bush, H.W. Sr. included, are all screwed up. This Maxine Baker, when she created this act, she left it open whereby it's much easier to have people committed because it's any social worker, any cop, which cops don't make false reports about things, right? Because they have a financial... See, in other words, if there's a family dispute and they come over and say, I don't know, maybe the wife came home drunk, maybe it wasn't even a guy, Sometimes, it's always a guy's fault, right? Usually that's the one that gets hauled away. But the cops will come in there, make a report, steal all the guns, take the guy away, put him in the thing, Baker Act him, that's what they call it, and then, he can get committed, depending on what judge he comes across. If he comes across a hanging judge, because a lot of times to unscrew these things, these judges get $5,000 payments under the table to unscrew them, besides you paying a freaking lawyer. That's the other thing. The Baker Act was passed in 1971. As a matter of fact, I know one of the attorneys, I don't know him real well, but I met him a few times, that was involved with working on this act because of problems with the mental health system being abused prior to this act. But this is actually related to gun control big time. And actually, most of these shootings, the kid is on drugs from the psych. I shouldn't laugh at that. The psych actually caused these shootings. They give them these drugs are really, 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 really bad for people. But they make money. I believe it was the pharmaceutical industry in general passed total revenues globally of $1 trillion in 2014. It was in 2015 or 2016, they passed $1.5 trillion, of which 1/3 of that, which is like half a trillion dollars, $500 billion, was psychotropic meds. There's big money in this. Actually, the people who are trying to stop this and slow this down, they're not doing anything. It's not working. I can tell you that right now. So they established patients' rights, Bill of Rights, and prohibited placement in county jails and mandated court-appointed attorneys. The reality of this Baker Act is, once you're in that system, you're subjected to a bunch of freaking $9 an hour mental midgets that get off on freaking kicking people around. There's been a lot of complaints about this Baker Act and a lot of lawsuits, but they were unsuccessful. As a matter of fact, all these institutions with this Baker Act are reimbursed through the Department of Children and Families, which is a very corrupt institution in itself, and has been under investigation even by the FBI, which is corrupt. I mean, they're all corrupt. One good thing is at least one corrupt agency might freaking, investigate the other corrupt agency. Involuntary admission for individuals with mental health issues. Now, who decides if there's a mental health issue? It's not, this is something that's not said by Communist Network News. Now, who decides if they have a mental health issue? It's the guy that is the psych. The psych has a financial incentive to make sure you have a mental health issue and diagnose you with one. There's absolutely no empirical evidence to freaking show this. There's no chemical imbalance that they test for. In other words, like when you go into a hospital, which I even disagree with this, but at least there's evidence to show, hey, you have high blood pressure. Oh, your cholesterol's too high. I don't think that's really a major problem. But at least they could say you got hypertension, or maybe your kidney function isn't up to par, or whatever it's supposed to be. At least they're doing a measurement, and they're saying, okay, we're going to give you meds to fix this. Now, I disagree with the meds, even in that case, because I think natural things can fix that. But in the case of psychiatry, they just put something down. You could have the same person go to 5, 10, 15, 20 different psychiatrists, and they'll come up with different diagnoses. And it will come up with a diagnosis because the big thing is the dollar sign. That's how they make money. They don't even do counseling hardly anymore. They just administer drugs. And if you don't like the drugs, they'll change them a little bit. But they get you addicted on them, and once you're addicted on them, you're screwed. And actually, that's what happened to the attorney that helped work with Maxine Baker. He had an accident, hit his head, and he got freaking put in he got caught in the system. He's a very intelligent guy. He's a great guy. And I also want to tell you this. Back during the time of the 60s, what they used to give to the Black Panthers was this drug called Haldol, used by the Soviet Union. Now, I don't like Martin Luther King Jr. I'm going to be bluntly honest here. I think the guy was he was a communist. I'm not a fan of this guy, okay? Now, as far as the early Black Panthers, the original ones, I think they're doing some good stuff because I realize, black people are getting screwed over. This Martin Luther King guy, I got to tell you this. In my opinion, I got to be honest. I'm not going to freaking play games, make a freaking, I love Martin Luther King. I'm telling you right now, this guy was a tool of the white establishment out of freaking New England. He was. He's he's the Pied Piper that's misleading the black people, the big time. But let me just say this. The Black Panthers that were protesting during his time, what they used to do, and this is another point I'm giving you, is they gave them Haldol, which was the Soviet-style drug that was developed back in the 1950s for Soviet dissidents. So if you felt very strongly about something, hey, give you some Haldol, hey, you're not going to feel so strongly about it. It'll start getting take effect where you're not going to care about anything. Oh, if you believe in Jesus a lot, hey, you'll stop believing in Jesus, okay? And if they give you a whole pile of Haldol combined with Ativan, what they got is what you call a chemical lobotomy, and everything in your brain short circuits, and they torture the hell out of you. That's another thing they commonly do in the Florida mental health system. And that becomes the basis for your psychosis. They cause the psychosis, and they say, oh, you got a condition. That's another scam. And you'll never find that out unless you pull the medical records. Now, I'm going to tell you, one of the things I'm really hot on, too, on this channel is about this Confederate flag. And I know some people are like, Heritage Nut hate and all this stuff. But you know what? You know why the powers really hate this flag? Oh, you noticed. You know why they hate this flag and why they always put things against it? Because it was one time people said, hey, we're not putting up with this freaking centralized garbage overtaxation coming out of D.C. We're fighting back for independence. We want to be independent farmers. They didn't like that. That's why, but that's another thing, and it's another point I want to bring up to. One of the ways they control people is to divide them into groups and have the different groups fight each other. So, maybe people that like Martin Luther King might not like this flag and vice versa, right? Well, that's another game. Because this way, we're too busy fighting each other, whereby we ought to be fighting the power. That's what we ought to be doing, you know? And again, I'll tell you, I respect the early Black Panthers. I don't like Martin Luther King, all right? But I respect the early Black Panthers, the early guys in the 60s, you know, the real ones, the startup venture. But, you know, I got to tell you this again. This guy, Rick Scott, in his whole 9 yards about his mental health is all about slavery. And the reality of the situation is, I can tell you, anybody that grabs as much money and is that greedy as Rick Scott or Bill Gates or Bloomberg, you know, Michael Bloomberg, or let's say Donald Trump, that's another reason I don't really trust him. Anybody with that kind of money, I don't really trust. Okay? You throw more money at them, hey, they're going to change their tune no matter what they told you during the election. Even him, right? Hillary Clinton and her freaking, Bill Clinton with their Clinton charitable foundation, you know, that was some 5% went to charitable contributions, charities, 95% went in their pockets, in their friends. You see, those people really are psychotic. You know, I can tell you this, only in the human species is stuff this bad. You know, if you go in any kind of species out there, you know, Mark Twain even remarked about this. You know, like, you don't see, like, when squirrels are gathering acorns for the winter time, right? To give an example. You know, one squirrel doesn't try to gather all the acorns and deprive the other squirrels of the acorns so he can, like, make them into, you know, work for him so he can dole out some acorns for them to survive as they get through the winter. No, everybody just takes what they need. It's more or less, you know, the only kind of human people that did stuff like this before was like the American native peoples. They took what they needed, and that was it, you know? Everybody owned everything, and, you know, it wasn't like, there was a little more equality back then, you know? Now, today, with these billionaires and stuff, and trillionaires, like Jeff Bezos with Amazon, you know, this guy's going to be a trillionaire pretty soon. This guy, I think they're really control freaks. You know, that's another side of it. Big business is control. And if you look at all the people even around Rick Scott, oh, God. The other reason they got control, if you look around at people around, it's not just Rick Scott. Like I said, I'm a lifelong Republican, but I'll never vote for this guy. This guy is on my radar. I'm going to make sure that the public knows just how much of a crook this guy is. Not just a normal everyday crook. This guy was the CEO of the largest Medicaid, Medicare fraud in the entire U.S. history. $1 billion worth of fines. He got $275, I think it was $1 million in stocks and 20-something million dollars in retirement money. Company got charged with 14 felonies, and he got charged with nothing. So why does he come to Florida? Medical. What do you think he's involved in? What do you think this guy's about? You think this guy gives a crap about anybody's rights, period? You know what? I'm going to tell you, even for you seniors that are coming down here, you know, even like beyond, let's not even talk about gun rights here for a second. Look about your life rights. You know, in other words, you're coming down here, basically, you're like a frog in a simmering pan of water, and you don't realize the heat's being turned up because the medical system is out there to steal all your wealth. And you're saying, oh, I don't care, I'm going to be dying someday anyway. Well, maybe you'll live a lot happier and a lot better off somewhere else. Because the whole system down here in the medical system, especially with Rick Scott as governor, and people like him around that surround him, they're all about ripping you off. That's why it's not even just about gun rights, it's about all your rights. And, you know, this guy, what is this guy? This guy, you know, every time you got one of these shootings, pretty much it's somebody, I don't even know why he raised the age. I'm in my 60s. You know, so he raised the freaking age to 21. You think it affects me? I don't care. But, you know, I'm pissed off at that because I'm thinking to myself, you know, if you're 18, you go in the military, you could drive a car when you're 17, you know. you can operate a chainsaw when you're 16 years old. You know what I mean? I mean, what's his problem? And none of these shootings had people that were under 21 anyway. But they all had people that were on psych meds. So, and you know what? This guy knows how corrupt the police were down in Parkland. You know, he knows this. The police in this, police they're corrupt everywhere, for crying out loud. I mean, I feel bad for the 10% good ones, but they're all screwed up, man. They're the millennial police now, so what the hell we got? So anyway, and also I'm going to say, this lady, Maxine Baker, in my opinion, she might not have been good at all, because basically she was from South Florida, and she was a very liberal Democrat. So, I mean, when she made this Baker Act, obviously these supposed nice-sounding things that were thrown in the act, in reality, none of them are really in place the way things work. I mean, people are getting Baker Acted because the daughter has a fight with the single mother, the mother gets hauled away, and then she's Baker Acted, and then she can't buy a gun. See that? That's how it works. This is what this lady did. It's like she didn't even help the woman at all. You know what I mean? She probably is a freak. I would love to know what her voting record is. She's probably bad news. But you know, you got these fake ass. And what is conservative anyway? What is that? I mean, I'm not a conservative. Who cares? Rick Scott, I'm a conservative. Yeah, whatever the hell you are. You know what? We don't need a government. We don't need a media. And you know, hopefully I can continue on with YouTube and, you know, put these things out here. I'm not really putting out. I'm putting out more of a common sense message from a lot of different angles that a lot of people aren't. You know, I'm not just hammering on one topic here. And actually, no, even my entire channel's not even about one topic. It's a great deal of different things. But the reality of the situation is, both the Democrats and the Republicans are out to steal your rights. And we don't even need these people. They just sit there. We don't need the major media. They're propaganda. See, Communist Network News or Fox. Fox is a bunch of garbage, too. You know, again, you know, the whole thing is about controlling the mind. That's also what the media does. It's a blitz of propaganda. And, you know, most of these shootings, I can tell you right now, man, very, let me put it to you this way. You know, me being somebody that used to be in the Marine Corps and knew about guns, it ain't that easy to don a whole freaking bunch of stuff like full body armor and shoot people. You know, like in Wild West movies, like they make it look so easy. These people are drugged up millennials that probably have a hard time. They probably don't even know how to change the tire on their car. And supposedly they're like Rambo, you know, like Paddock. You remember him? Get out of here. It's ridiculous. You know, if you want, and actually, you know, there's some FBI, you know, the 2 or 3 or maybe 1, they're ratting out the other FBI that are the evil ones, you know, which is 90% of them. And, you know, we're finding out a little bit of things, but for the most part, we're not. Because, you know, they're not allowing you to say this stuff on YouTube anymore. Now, hopefully they'll let me say this, but anyway, I don't know, man. Susan, you got to remember Susan. How did the Germans get, you know, this the German freaking thing right here, man. You know? It's, you know, this guy, I tell you, Rick Scott is a scary-looking guy, too. I mean, this is one of the nicest pictures I saw with him. He should wear one of those toupees. He'd get one of, like, a hippie hair. one of those bandana things around his head or some shit, and put a reefer in his mouth. I'd probably like him better then. I don't like this guy. But I know these are phonies. They're phonies. You know? I don't like these people, man. And it's like, I don't like the Democrats, though. It's like, that's why I ain't voting no more. I'm done with this. But anyway, hopefully I gave you a couple of angles on things, because, you know, this mental health issue thing is fraudulent, and it's drug dealing. It's all about controlling people, and it's all about making more money for the pharmaceutical industry. But, you know, at the same time, the more people they get on these meds, the more creativity they knock out of them, the more productivity they knock out of them, the more brain power they knock out of them, they lower their IQ, the more energy they knock out of them. And it affects the GDP in the nation, or in the state, or in the county. You know, some counties are big into freaking Baker acting people and stuff, right? You know, some counties are more than others. And you know what happens? Hey, every person that's Baker acting in that county, that's that much less GDP coming out of that individual, which reflects how much money the county gets. And it comes around. What goes around comes around. But eventually, I think what's going to happen is, it's probably going to tell you on my other freaking channel, man. I think Vlad Putin is going to be the big punisher for the freaking USA and all this crap. It's going down, man. It's going down. And, maybe they're trying to tweak this Vlad Putin a lot. I got theories on what's going on. It's theories that nobody else put out. I'll probably put that on my other channel, American Russian Survival. And, but, like I said, it's all about controlling people and getting people to fight each other. Meantime, we gotta stop even acknowledging that these people over us rule us. They don't rule us. They're crap. Over and out.